Panfilo Ping Lacson. Senator Lacson, welcome to The Source and maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
October 16, Senator, the House passed the budget on third and final reading. But in yesterday's report, institutional amendments apparently will still be inputted in the printing of the 2021 budget. Is this acceptable to you?
No, it is not a matter of being acceptable to the senators or not. It's a matter of the Constitution prohibiting it because Section 26 of the Constitution is very clear. No amendments shall be allowed after the final reading of any bill, not just the General Appropriations Act, but any measure for that matter.
So it's unconstitutional.
It is unconstitutional. They claim that it's errata to be submitted by the agencies, but that's another violation because the budget process, it's a four-phase process that involves preparation to be handled by the executive branch, and then authorization. We are now in the authorization phase, and it is the exclusive domain of the Congress. So we cannot allow the executive or the agencies under the executive branch to participate in the authorization phase. That is the exclusive domain of the Congress of the Philippines.
And how will the senators accept this if you're saying this is unconstitutional?
Well, anybody can question that before the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, we will have to pass the budget. And we're thankful to the House leadership for at least passing the budget on third and final reading last Friday, last October 16. And we have enough time to do our thing and approve on third and final reading our own version of the budget on or before we go on break or even earlier, so that there will be enough time, say 1 week or 2 weeks, for the bicameral conference to happen.
So in spite of this, you're still seeing the budget to be passed on time?
Yeah, we'll make sure of that because it's passed on third and final reading, and they promised to transmit it to the Senate on October 16. October 28, or 1 or 2 days later. So we have enough time. That's the reason why we agreed among ourselves to even resume session 1 week earlier because we're supposed to resume on November 16. We're resuming our session on November 9.
Senator, help me understand the situation. It's passed on third and final reading. It was passed on third and final reading last October 16. There are institutional amendments, as they call them, and this will be inputted in the printing, and then it will be sent to the Senate. Why not just take a couple of extra days to input this institutional amendments, pass it on third and final reading, and then print it?
You know, Pinky, whether or not it's institutional or individual amendments is of no moment. Kasi the Constitution is very clear. They cannot anymore introduce amendments after the third and final reading of any bill. This bill included.
Yeah.
So they cannot do that. But in the meantime, we will have to live with that and tackle the budget measure in the Senate once it is transmitted to us, whether in soft copy or hard copy. They promised to send us the USB, the soft copy, by October 28. And we will have enough time to look into it so that on November 9, the chairman of the Committee on Finance will be able to file the committee report, the Senate committee report, and sponsor the measure on the floor probably on November 10. So we'll have enough time because interpolations and the period of amendments, we can finish that in 2 weeks. So give or take November 9 plus 14. So we'll have ample time to pass our own version and even tackle the disagreeing provisions in bicameral conference.
Yeah, but I still want to ask you that question, sir. Bakit hindi ho kaya dinagdagan na lang yung House sessions, pag-usapan po itong mga institutional amendments, pass it on third and final reading, and then have the budget printed?
You are absolutely correct. Ano? Dapat ganun na lang ginawa. Nag-extend sila ng 1 more week before they approve the budget on third and final reading so they can input all the amendments, individual or institutional, within that 1 week period. And then 1 week later, after October 16, maybe this week, they could have passed it on third and final reading para i-transmit na sa amin 1 week later. So pasok pa rin yun doon sa schedule. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's not what happened. So we have to live with that. Ano?
Ano ho ba, just for the benefit of myself and the viewers, sir, ano ho ba pag tinatawag na institutional amendments?
Ang institutional amendments, mostly, nanggagaling ito sa request ng mga agencies. Like for example, I'm going to introduce and I'll state it here and now, no, that I am inclined to introduce an institutional amendment to augment the budget of the DOST because nakaltasan ng 76 million pesos yung kanilang sa research. Ano? Another one is there's 8.2 billion pesos under the item special concerns, convergence and special support. Ano? Ito yung nakalodge sa budget ng DPWH but then ang implementation nito ang makikinabang is DOT. Now, I asked this particular question during the budget deliberations sa committee. Bakit yung tourism, one of the hardest hit sectors, yung infrastructure, kasi nakalagay doon leading to tourism destinations. Bakit binawasan pa natin ng 8.2 billion? Parang it doesn't make sense na yung theme ng 2021 budget is reset, rebound, and recover. So instead of allowing the tourism sector to recover or to rebound, binawasan pa ng 8.2 billion at dinala kung saan-saan yung sa mga multipurpose buildings and so forth and so on. So ito yung mga institutional amendments. Yung individual amendment naman, ito yung mga local projects like multipurpose building, dredging, flood control. Yan yung mga pinapasok, farm to market roads.
Apo. I want to talk about the national projects and the local projects, sir, because I know you questioned that. But before I go there, just 2 more questions on this budget on third and final reading. I did watch Congressman Yap saying that it's an agency-initiated amendment that is part of the rules.
Yeah, that's the
So,
second
pwede po yun.
violation because the first violation is the Constitution na wala nang pwedeng pumasok na amendments. Ang second violation is allowing the executive branch through their agencies to participate in the authorization phase of the budget process. Because there are 4 phases, ano? Preparation, handled by the executive, authorization, handled by Congress, execution, again handled by the executive branch, and then accountability. This is where COA comes in. So separate and distinct lahat yung phases na yan. Sa amin yung authorization. So I cannot understand why the chairman of the Appropriations Committee of the House would allow the executive branch through their agencies to participate in the authorization phase. That is in violation of the budget process.
All right. There's so much to talk about, and of course, the big question
If I may
is the
suggest,
report
Pinky, no,
in the...
siguro the better way to do it is just to transmit to us whatever they passed on third and final reading, kung ano man yung form nun, and then we tackle everything in the BICAM. Anyway, they can introduce their own amendments in the BICAM because as we say, as we describe the BICAM, ito yung third and most powerful branch of the legislature, ano? Ito yung kasi even
That's why, Senator, kaya naguguluhan pa rin po ako eh. Pwede naman pong mangyari yun sa BICAM. Even you said there would be institutional amendments that you want to put in place, such as that of the Department of Tourism and that, of course, of the DOST. I read that, sir. Bakit ho? What is the intention or the reason of passing it on third and final reading and then introduce institutional amendments after that? Is it just to be able to meet a deadline?
Yeah, I cannot see any reason why they should do that because it's really in violation of the Constitution. It's
All right.
unconstitutional, plain and
Senate,
simple.
okay, we need to talk about also what is in the budget. I want to talk about the DOST, sir, the DPWH, the national projects versus the local projects, and of course, pork. This is the source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson. Senator Lacson, kilala po kayo na galit sa pork. Hindi ho kayo. You scrutinized the budget, and even before the Supreme Court ruling on this, hindi ho talaga kayo tumatanggap ng pork. Okay. Meron ho ba kayo so far na nakikitang pork sa 2021 budget?
Wala pa yung transmitted version. So hindi pa natin makita yung final form noong tinatawag na GAB 2, yung General Appropriations Bill 2, which is the final House version. Now, under the NEP, doon kami merong nakita. In fact, there's another flaw in the submission of the National Expenditure Program. While the DBM or the executive submitted the budget last August 25, which is well within the 30-day period allowed under the Constitution, na after mag-open yung Congress or when the President delivers the SONA, within 30 days, kailangan transmit sa Congress. They did that. Ang problema, yung DPWH submitted what they call an addendum last September 7. So 42 days after yung 30-day period, 12 days after the lapse of the 30-day period, saka pala nagsabit ng addendum, and we consider that as part of the NEP. Again, yung DPWH, hindi na sana namin pwedeng tanggapin yung sinabit nilang addendum because that's still part of the National Expenditure Program. Expired na yon, yung naisabit na yung NEP. So that's another violation which we questioned during the committee hearings. Merong silang explanation that they were pressed for time, etc., which to us, senators, hindi naman acceptable. But nandito na tayo. So again, we consider that nakita natin may mga lump sums. And meron mga naulit na appropriations, meaning projects already appropriated under the present year, the current year, 2020.
Yeah.
Inulit na naman ito. Exact technical description ng mga projects.
Right. I did see that, sir, and I did read that. There are two things I want to discuss about this. Because when you were talking about the budget, kay Secretary Avisado, nagkaroon nga po ng explanation because of questions on lump sum. But let's stick to this, sir. Ang tanong niyo po kasi dito, nagtataka ho kayo, bakit yung national projects, yung funds for the national projects decreased? And the funds for the local projects actually increased. And I remember you asking, were lawmakers responsible for this, or was this completely your doing, asking the DPWH this question? Did you get a clear answer, sir?
No clear answer to that. Ang tinanong ko, because we had this information coming from the House members themselves. Some of them were also giving us the information na kaya na-delay yung submission ng DPWH na dapat nasama doon sa NEP sa August 25 submission dahil there was a lot of haggling that went on between some members of the House under the previous leadership and DBM. So nagka-delay yung submission ng DPWH. In the meantime, we found 396 billion pesos worth of projects na lump sum. Walang items. Talagang very general yung description like preventive maintenance of primary roads, secondary roads, tertiary roads. Walang nakalagay kung ano yung items under preventive maintenance. So yun ang kinwestiyon, and then they submitted a detailed description of those lump sum appropriations. Doon na pumasok yung nabawasan. Hindi lamang yung lump sum ang hagip. Even other items under the DPWH budget, binago. So it was mangled, ang description ko nga, mangled beyond recognition, mutilated. Talagang naiba na. So again, I was questioning that early, why would DPWH be able to participate doon sa authorization phase ng budget process. Kasi dapat sa Congress na yun eh. Pero nag-amend sila, yung sinasabing addendum, effectively they amended the net, and that's within the domain or exclusive jurisdiction of the Congress through the House of Representatives and eventually sa Senate. Ang daming
So,
violation
is there
tingin
something
itong
wrong?
2021.
Yeah, yun na nga po eh. I hear you identifying so many violations, and yet you keep saying, sir, andito na tayo. Why? Because the budget needs to be passed. So let me put that aside, sir. So is there something wrong na bumaba po yung funds allocated for national projects at tumaas po yung funds para sa local projects?
Depends on the items, on the description of the items. Ang napansin namin, kasi pagka mayroong theme, every year, pagka nagbibigay sila ng National Expenditure Program sa Kongreso, merong theme. And for 2021, ang theme nila napakaliwanag, reset, rebound, recover.
Rebound,
So dapat,
recover.
yun ang guiding principle. Lahat ng gagawin nating, lahat ng items na ipapasok natin doon, nakapaloob doon sa reset, rebound, and recover. Yung reset, tapos na yon because January to June. And June to December, yun yung tinatawag nilang rebound. Rebound and recover under the 2021 budget, parang it doesn't jive with the items in the budget. On the other hand, baligtad pa yung nangyari. Instead na mag-comply o sumunod doon sa rebound and recover, parang hindi doon papunta. Parang ang layo doon sa panawagan ng theme nila mismo.
Senator Lacson, we need to take another short break. The Source will be right back. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Senator Panfilo Ping Lacson. So you talked about that, sir, the questionable lump sums of DPWH budget, decrease in national roads projects, increase in local roads. Sir, where do you see the problem here? Is the problem with the DPWH having such questionable items, lump sum in the budget, sir? Is it a question of leadership, for example, Secretary Villar? Where does that go?
Well, we must remember that the Congress exercises oversight function or check and balance sa executive branch, especially during budget deliberations. So nangyari dito, I think I can only surmise, there was a lot of pressure on Secretary Villar to accede to requests from district representatives. Kaya nga natagalan yung pag-submit nila. Another item that I want to augment as an institutional amendment, yung sa vaccines, there's only 2.5 billion pesos for vaccines to cover 3.9 million Filipinos. Now, assuming that there's already a vaccine available sa April next year, kulang na kulang yung 2.5 billion. So I'm thinking of augmenting another, say, 10 billion pesos or at least ma-approximate yung 10 billion pesos to cover more Filipinos. Kasi 3.9 million of 100 million Filipinos, out of 100 million Filipinos, masyado maliit yung mapo-cover.
But mind you, Senator, that's part of the amendments that will be part of the printed copy, because the House was saying that there's an amendment of about 20 billion pesos and there's 5 billion pesos here, sir, for the COVID vaccine.
Well, that's good because we'll just formalize it. While I'm not saying that we're accepting the amendment or amendments introduced by the House after not in compliance with the third reading approved budget or version, pero we will formalize it in the Senate and probably in the BICAM, we can finalize it. Kung dinagdagan lang ng 10 billion, so naging 12.5, that's most welcome because pagka meron ng vaccines next year, kailangan talaga natin to cover as many Filipinos as we can. Kasi kung 3.9, how about the 96 million Filipinos? Mag-ahawa-hawa rin yun.
Right. Senator, very quickly, pinag-usapan nyo din, I know yung double appropriation, same item, same definition in 2020 and then same item, same definition in 2021. Ilan ho ito and how much in total yung nakita ninyo so far? And why? Why would there be the
Yeah,
same budget for the same project in
5,913.
2020 and 2021?
Yeah, there are 5,913 projects all in all, amounting to 135 billion pesos. Ito yung appropriated na in the 2020 budget. Tapos nakita uli namin, the same description, yung mga kilometer, yung stationing na tinatawag nila, from kilometer so and so to kilometer so and so. Ang tanong doon, kung hindi naman na-discontinue yung project, bakit hindi, kasi kung obligated na yung Pinky, that's another violation, especially yung Arroyo versus Aquino at saka yung Belgica, yung kaso sa DAP, di ba? Kasi clearly, dinefine na ng Supreme Court, ano ba yung meaning ng savings? Pag savings, kailangan discontinued o kaya completed o kaya abandoned. Ang tinatanong namin kina Secretary Abisado, Secretary Villar, nag-fall ba under those categories yung mga projects na sa 2020? Kasi kung obligated meaning meron ng notice of award, hindi mo na pwedeng bawasan yung budget na yun because obligation yun. Para may kontrata na yun between the contractor and the government.
Correct.
Yun ang problema.
All right. Senator, we're going to have to say, well, I think I have 1 minute here on television. I wanted you to briefly react on this because also Congressman Yap was saying yesterday that even Speaker Velasco was saying there's no pork in this budget. I know you're saying that you want to look at the final version first. Pero there was also a statement na dadaan naman daw po ito sa Senado, sabi ni Congressman Yap. Maybe you can tell them kung may pork, dadaan daw ito sa Senado at pwede namang ayusin kapag may pork sa budget.
Definitely, dadaan talaga sa Senate yun, Pinky, kasi bicameral tayo eh. Now, I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt because new leadership, hindi naman namin kakilala pa sina Speaker Velasco, Congressman Yap. You know, Pinky, we are the old guards dito sa, hindi naman sa pagbubuhat ng bangko. Well, old guards and they're the young Turks. And gusto lang namin silang i-remind na there's a budget process that is not supposed to be flouted. And there's the Constitution that we must adhere to. So yun lang naman ang basic reminders namin sa kanila na pag magpasa sila ng budget, meron tayong sinusunod na panuntunan. Sana sumunod naman sila doon para hindi nagkakaroon ng problema between the two houses. But yes, in the meantime, we're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt na walang pork until we see the transmitted final version of the House ng budget bill.
We have to say thank you to Senator Ping Lacson for now on television, but we will continue our discussion on Facebook Live. We're going to talk about the IRR of the anti-terrorism law. Thank you for joining us. Senator Ping, maraming salamat po sa inyo.
Thank you, Pinky.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines. So, naslash po sila ng 76 million. I can imagine, sir, how important, especially now, funding is for the DOST.
Yes. Ang problema kasi, yung napansin ko, year in and year out, yung budget nating binibigay para sa research and development, not just sa DOST, across the board, lahat ng mga agencies, nagko-constitute ito ng nasa mga 0.4% lang ng national budget. Ang problema natin mga Pilipino, ang research and development natin, mag-Google, maghanap ng mabibili. Instead na i-harness natin yung ating mga homegrown talents, mga scientists, researchers, at pondohan natin, suportahan natin ng budget, hindi natin ginagawa. So, eto, kailangan natin ng vaccines, kailangan natin ng mga gamit para sa pandemic. Bili tayo ng bili. Siyempre, pag bumibili, mas mahal. Samantalang it's time we stop shopping, tayo naman sana magbenta. And hindi naman tayo nagkukulang sa mga scientists, sa mga researchers. Ang dami natin mga talents. Suportahan na lang sana natin para we would someday become an exporting country na mga new inventions. Baliktad 0.4%, or 4%. I'm not very sure about the exact figure. Pero
baka humalaki yung 4%,
That's why I promised DOST na i-augment natin yung budget nila. And also, ito, isa pa, the ICT, Pinky. dapat sana, they were requesting for something like 18 billion pesos para yung kanilang national broadband program. Kasi andyan na yung highway, ang tinatawag. All they have to do is to
Yes.
improve it some more, and they need 18 billion pesos. Ang binigay lang sa kanila 902. Ang cost effectiveness noon, in 5 years, ang matitipid ng gobyerno, yung government agencies. Kasi ngayon, lahat ng mga government offices, nagbabayad tayo sa internet service. Ang estimate nila, makakatipid sila ng mga, ang government, the entire government bureaucracy, makakatipid ng 34 billion pesos. So di ba cost effective yung mag-invest ka ng 18 billion for next year, tapusin nila yung National Broadband Program, and in 5 years, nakasave na yung government ng 34 billion pesos. During the first year, estimate nila mga 730 plus million. Ganun ang cost effectiveness, hindi nakikita ng, ewan ko, yung mga policy makers. Ano?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so just one more on the budget, sir. Ito pong National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. Ang sabi po ng Makabayan, there is a lump sum of 19 billion. Just 2 questions on this. Nakita nyo na ho ba ito? At lump sum nga ho ba? Pangatlo, and dapat ho ba ganun ang budget nitong Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict?
I asked the Defense Department during our budget deliberations, kasi ako yung sponsor ng budget nila ng DND. They will submit the itemized list of projects na papasok doon sa, kasi ito DPWH din ito eh. Kaya lang nakalodge ito sa DPWH nakalodge, pero ang implementation is para doon sa mga infrastructure sa government camps, no? PNP, AFP, and all the uniformed sector. So isasabit nila yan before our floor deliberations. We expect to receive the submission both from the DND and the other uniformed services before the budget deliberations happen in the Senate. So hingin namin yung mga items.
So aaralin yung pa to, Senator Ping. All right, let's talk about the
as of now, tama yun.
Anti-Terrorism Act,
Nakalamsam
sir.
ito.
Okay.
As of now, tama yung sinabi ng Makabayan Black. Nakalamsam.
19 billion ata ito, Senator Ping. Let's talk about the Anti-Terrorism Act, sir. Ito pong lumabas na yung IRR. You can please help us again understand the situation. Ito pong ATC, ngayon ang mangyayari, law enforcers must submit a sworn statement regarding a suspect prior to an arrest. The IRR says this: the ATC shall issue a written authority in favor of the law enforcement or military personnel upon submission of a sworn statement stating the details of the person suspected of committing acts of terrorism. Sa madaling salita, Senator Ping, meron pong suspect, yung police, pinagsususpetsahan mo ito na posibleng terrorist suspect. Susulat po siya ng sworn statement para sa ATC para po ma-effect ang arrest of this particular individual or group. That's correct, no, sir?
No, that is not correct. After the arrest, hindi before the arrest, because the ATC cannot order the arrest of any person. We did not amend yung Rule 113 of the Rules of Court on warrantless arrest. It's there because we cannot amend that. Hindi subject sa amendment ng Congress because Rules of Court yan eh. The Supreme Court can amend or modify yung rules of court. Yung Rule 113 stays, and it's only through probable cause. At saka, it's only through yung personal knowledge na mayroong probable cause yung arresting. Not just law enforcement agents, even civilians. Kaya tawag natin dito, di ba, civilian arrest, di ba?
Citizen's arrest.
Citizen's arrest. I'm sorry. Citizen's arrest or warrantless arrest. So hindi naman ginalaw yon. Ang ni-require ng under the law and further clarified under the IRR, yung kailangan yung arresting officer, kailangan magsabit ng written report sa ATC, hindi lang sa ATC, Pinky, CHR, and the nearest yung judge ng nearest court doon sa pinangyarihan ng arrest. Ito yung safeguard na nilagay natin sa Anti-Terrorism Act na kung saan ma-safeguard yung rights noong arrested suspect. No matter how deeply involved he may be sa terrorist acts, kailangan sabihan ng arresting officer yung CHR, ATC, and the judge na meron kaming inaresto rito. Ang ginawa ng sa IRR, nilagyan nila ng period kasi nakalagay sa immediately eh. So nilagyan nila ng period na within 8 hours, kailan masubmit na yung report. Written report ito And there's punishment, there's penalty pag hindi nag-render ng report or written report, yung notification, yung arresting officer. Pwede siyang makulong ng 10 years.
So, malinaw po, Senator Ping, hindi po pinapayagan ang ATC to authorize law enforcement individual to arrest someone, to effect a warrantless arrest. Hindi po sila pinapayagan. Yung ATC po, hindi nabibigyan ng ganong kapangyarihan to effect. This is where you keep saying, we're not understanding it clearly. Ganon ho ba yun?
Yun nga may mga misinterpretation because we did not, ang inamend namin dito yung Article 125 of the Revised Penal Code, yung reglementary period of detention. Under the Human Security Act, 3 days ang ibinigay. Under ordinary crimes or prior to the passage of the now repealed Human Security Act, 36 hours lang yan, yung maximum. Kasi graduated yan eh. Pagka yung capital offenses, yung law enforcement, meron lang 36 hours within which kailangan i-file nila yung kaso or i-release nila yung suspect. Yun ang inamin natin because that's a policy decision of Congress. And the revised penal code may be subject to amendments. In fact, we have amended so many provisions under the revised penal code to be attuned with the times kasi out of date na talaga, antiquated na yung revised penal code eh. So yun ang inamin natin. But yung warrantless arrest, hindi natin ginalaw yun. Kaya yung police officers, military officers, are bound by the rules of court, yung Rule 113 on warrantless arrest.
So the ATC is not granted the right to allow an arrest that should be actually left to the courts?
Yeah. Yung warrant of arrest can only be issued by the court. Pero yung warrantless arrest, depende yan doon sa circumstances. Yung about to commit, actually committing, has just committed. Tapos may personal knowledge yung law enforcement officer. Yung third element yan or requirement, circumstance, yun yung escape convict. Kasi hindi mo na kailangan yung warrant of arrest to arrest an escape convict because understandably, meron na siyang sineserve na time o sa prison. So covered na siya pwede siyang arrestuin kasi escape convict. Pero yung dalawa, yun yung may mga circumstances yun. Hindi na natin ginalaw yan. Hindi natin pwedeng galawin yun eh. Yeah.
Okay. Sir, ito na lang po yung sa publication. Isa pa po yung publication of names of people or groups tagged as terrorists. Now, meron po ngayon na these individuals that will be designated, designated as terrorists have, I believe, 15 days to be able to delist themselves. So, sino ho ba nagde-designate? Hindi ho ba yung ATC?
Yes, because designation is purely administrative. Hindi ito judicial. Walang judicial process involved sa designation. And yung designation, hindi naman ito... Yeah.
Okay. So, let me ask you this, sir. Kayo naging recipient rin ho kayo in the past ng nakaaway ho kayo ng gobyerno o inaway niyo po ang gobyerno. Ganito po yun eh. If the ATC has the right to tag to designate is the right word someone as a terrorist, how can you assure the public that any progressive group or anyone critical of government ay hindi unilaterally ile-label ng ATC na terorista?
Hindi naman ito absolute on the part of the ATC, yung pag-determine kung sino yung ma-designate. ang sinusunod natin dito yung United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373. May mga parameters diyan. Even if say a supranational organization like the EU, for example, nag-request sa Pilipinas sa Anti-Terrorism Council, i-designate nyo itong CPP-NPA as a terrorist organization, yung ATC cannot just do that. Kailangan ito susunod sa panuntunan ng United Nations Security Council Resolution 1373. And yung designation, ang purpose lang nito, hindi naman pwedeng arestuhin pagka designated yung person. Ang pwede lang gawin doon, pwedeng dumulog yung ATC sa Anti-Money Laundering Council para sa freezing of assets. Precisely because pag na-freeze yung assets, whether bank accounts or yung mga ibang moving assets nitong suspected terrorist or designated person, magkaroon ng sapat na pagkakataon na ma-preempt o ma-prevent yung occurrence ng terrorism. Nangyari ito sa Marawi, Pinky, dahil sa Marawi, sige yung flow of funds papuntang Marawi, helpless yung government. Alam na nila, may mga information na sila na unusual yung flow ng funds at meron silang information na mayroong mangyayaring terroristic activities sa Marawi. But they were so helpless. So nilagay natin dito to prevent the commission of the crime of terrorism. Pinapayagan ito sa United Nations Security Council resolution.
Yeah, but what happens, sir, to an individual or a group who will be designated as a terrorist and may publication po nung kanilang mga pangalan, tapos meron naman po silang karapatan na i-delist yung kanilang mga sarili. However, nandun ka na. Kumbaga parang natag ka na sa terrorist.
Well, wala kasi sa batas yun. Sa IRR ito lumabas yung publication. And anybody can question. Kasi baka yung Data Privacy Act merong implication, baka merong violation. I don't know. No? Pero yung sa batas mismo, wala naman sinasabi na ipapublish. But we gave the Anti-Terrorism Council that authority under certain conditions, following some parameters, within some parameters, to designate individuals or persons. Yung prescription yung judicial process.
Yeah, but do you agree that on this publication of the names designated as terrorists?
Well, sa akin, merong purpose yun. I can only, I can only guess na yung purpose ng Anti-Terrorism Council na mag-publish para i-defend naman o makapag-ready naman yung designated person on whatever prospective action could be taken against him, like yung freezing of accounts. And let's see, Pinky, how it shapes up later, because meron mga pending petitions sa Supreme Court, and I'm sure this will
there are 37,
be
sir.
Tackled, among others.
All right. And possible, sir, yung kaso nung Indonesian suicide bomber arrested, sabi mo nga pwede ito maging test case. You actually called it an inchoate offense, no?
Yes. Kasi yung anak ng Indonesian couple responsible for the suicide bombing mission sa Sulu, hindi pa siya nag-commit ng crime. Sinama natin inchoate offenses dahil para ma-prevent. Ito yung planning, preparation, facilitating. Clearly, kung titingnan natin yung evidence against yung si Sisi, alias Sisi, meron siyang vest na meron siyang explosives, naka-disguise as vest. And then, meron pa rin siyang ibang mga nakuhanan sa kanyang ebidensya. Now, it is up it's up to the law enforcement agency or agents na naka-aresto sa kanya to prove yung tinatawag nating inchoate offenses, meaning na meron silang ebidensya doon sa preparation, at saka rin yun, ang penalty doon is as grave, as heavy as having participated in the actual act of terrorism, which is life imprisonment with walang GCTA, meaning walang parole, walang benefit of parole.
No. Senator Ping Lacson, thank you for extending, sir. You gave me 15 more minutes. Maraming salamat po sa inyong oras. And of course, we'll continue to
Thank you.
look into, of course, the budget, sir. Senator Ping Lacson, thank you, sir.
Thank you.